Imagine spending $50,000 to build this state-of-the-art, beautifully designed retail store. You stock it with incredible products, you run this massive marketing campaign, and on opening day, customers are lined up around the block.
Right, which is the absolute dream scenario for any business owner.
Exactly. But then they step up to the front door, and the handle is just jammed shut half the time. They jiggle it, they wait a few seconds, and then they just give up and walk over to your competitor across the street.
I mean, it sounds completely absurd when you put it in physical terms like that. No business owner would ever tolerate that for a second.
No, of course not. But in the digital space, that exact scenario happens millions of times every single day. And, well, that is the harsh reality of the modern web design industry.
Yeah, it really is a massive blind spot for a lot of companies.
For sure. I mean, if you've ever been through a corporate website redesign, you know the drill. It usually involves like months of waiting, skyrocketing costs, and sitting on Zoom calls nodding along to technical jargon while developers explain why changing a simple layout is going to take another 3 weeks.
Oh, the dreaded 3-week delay for a button color change. We've all been there.
Right. So that's why we are doing a deep dive today into a guide titled 7 Reasons to Hire a Breakdance Builder Agency for Modern Website Design. Our mission here is to unpack this massive paradigm shift we're seeing.
It's a huge shift. We are thankfully moving away from the era of needing massive in-house teams writing code from scratch.
Yeah, and we're looking at how visual platforms, specifically one called Breakdance Builder, are completely rewriting the rules of the game.
It really is a fundamental shift in how digital real estate is constructed. Because what the source material lays out isn't just, a list of software features. It's an argument that the underlying architecture of the internet is being commoditized.
Okay, commoditized how?
Well, when you switch from manual labor to advanced visual automation, you don't just change the technology. You change the timeline, you change the budget, and you change the baseline quality of what a business can actually launch.
That makes a lot of sense. But to understand why agencies are completely abandoning old workflows for tools like Breakdance, I feel like we first have to look at how everyday users actually behave online.
Absolutely, because the most advanced technology in the world doesn't mean anything if it ignores user psychology.
Right. So looking at the user experience, the source highlights a statistic that should honestly make any business owner pause. 53% of users abandon a slow site.
Over half. Just gone.
Yeah, more than half of your potential revenue just vanishes into thin air if your page doesn't load almost instantaneously.
Huh.
I mean, speed is no longer a metric just for the IT department. It's a top-tier business priority.
It has to be. But I think people underestimate why that happens. Well, I want to dig into the mechanics of that, actually. Because, it is 2026. Fast internet is practically everywhere. Why do older, highly established website builders still struggle so badly with speed?
It all comes down to architectural legacy. Specifically, it's a problem we call code bloat.
Code bloat. Okay, what does that look like behind the scenes?
So many of the most popular page builders on the market were engineered years ago. And to make their platforms visually flexible, they load massive amounts of generic code like CSS and JavaScript files on every single page.
Just in case you might need them.
Exactly, just in case you might want to use a specific feature.
So wait, even if I have a super simple homepage with just like a picture and a contact button, the older software is still loading the code for sliders and pop-ups and complex animations in the background.
Yes, that is the exact mechanism causing the delay. The browser has to download and parse all of those invisible, unused instructions before it can actually display your simple picture and button to the user. Oh, wow. So having a slow website today is literally like opening a beautiful retail store, but the front door is jammed shut. People just give up.
Precisely. Breakdance approaches this from the completely opposite direction. It uses something called selective asset loading.
Okay, selective loading, meaning what?
It only asks the browser to load the specific code for the exact elements present on that specific screen, nothing more.
Oh, I see. So it's like packing for a weekend trip by only putting 3 days of clothes in your bag instead of towing your entire wardrobe behind your car just in case.
That is a perfect analogy, yes.
But the guide also mentions modern CSS techniques, like Flexbox and CSS Grid. For a non-developer listening to this, what do those terms actually mean in practice?
Well, to understand why CSS Grid is such a breakthrough, we have to look at the old way of building layouts. If you wanted a simple 3-column design, say 3 product images sitting next to each other, older builders would create a massive nesting doll of code.
The nesting doll. Like boxes inside of boxes.
Exactly. They would put a digital box, inside another box, just to force those three items to sit side by side. Every one of those nested boxes adds an extra layer of code for the browser to read. Developers call it the DOM size, the document object model.
Oh, right. So a deeper nesting doll means the browser has to work harder to get to the actual content.
Yes, but CSS Grid and Flexbox are native features built directly into modern web browsers. They essentially allow developers to declare a blueprint upfront.
So it's a flatter structure.
Much flatter. The code just says, create a 3-column grid, and then simply drops the images into those slots without all the extra nested boxes. The file sizes shrink dramatically, the browser reads it effortlessly, and the page loads like lightning.
Which directly impacts the bottom line because Google explicitly rewards fast sites with better search rankings.
Oh, absolutely. SEO is hugely dependent on site speed now.
And we also have to factor in where people are actually looking at these sites. The guide notes that by 2026, 68% of sales happen on mobile platforms, over 2/3. Mobile is the storefront now.
Which is why the old workflow of designing a beautiful desktop site and then trying to, squish it down to fit on a phone right before launch is fundamentally broken.
Yeah, that always looks terrible anyway. So how does Breakdance handle that?
Breakdance forces a mobile-first reality. It has built-in responsive controls and touch-optimized layouts right from the ground up.
Well, if CSS Grid and selective loading solve the front-end speed problem, that's great. But it really doesn't matter if the back-end infrastructure is held together by duct tape.
And from my understanding of traditional WordPress sites, duct tape is putting it mildly.
Right. The guide dives heavily into eliminating something called plugin sprawl. What are developers actually dealing with behind the scenes here?
The plugin ecosystem has historically been WordPress's greatest strength, but also its most crippling weakness. For a layperson, a plugin is basically a third-party app you install on your website to add a specific feature.
Like an app on your phone.
Sort of, yes. Traditionally, if you wanted a pop-up form to collect emails, you installed a pop-up plugin. If you wanted a complex navigation menu, you got a mega menu plugin.
And according to the source, Breakdance introduces full site editing visually with over 135 professional-grade elements right out of the box, meaning those pop-ups, sliders, and menus are just natively built into the platform.
Yes, and that centralization is critical because of what happens when you rely on 20 or 30 different plugins. You end up with this Frankenstein architecture.
Frankenstein architecture, that sounds messy.
It is. You have 30 different pieces of software written by 30 different developers around the world, all running simultaneously on your site.
Oh, I see where this is going. And when WordPress releases a core system update, those 30 independent developers might not update their code on the exact same day.
Which leads to catastrophic conflicts. One outdated plugin can break another or drag the entire server to a halt. It creates a massive, ongoing maintenance nightmare.
So business owners end up paying agencies monthly retainer fees just to constantly update plugins and fix the things that break.
Exactly. Breakdance essentially cures plugin sprawl by bringing the most essential functionalities under one unified, heavily tested roof.
Okay, I hear the logic there, but I have to play the skeptic for a moment.
Go for it.
If we are replacing 20 distinct plugins with Breakdance, aren't we just putting all our eggs in one basket? I mean, an all-in-one monolith sounds incredibly risky. If Breakdance pushes a bad update, doesn't my entire business go offline?
That is a very common fear, and it's why developers championed modularity for so long. But let's look at the actual risk profile here. Breakdance is not a hosted platform like Shopify. It is software running on your own independent server. You control when updates happen.
Okay, so I can test it first before rolling it out.
Exactly. And more importantly, the statistical risk of one highly funded, rigorously QA-tested core framework failing is significantly lower than the daily chaotic risk of 30 different third-party plugins conflicting with each other.
So it's a calculated trade-off. You're trading the illusion of modularity for practical day-to-day stability.
Yes, you lock into their ecosystem, yes, but in exchange, the elements are designed to interact flawlessly. The agency saves a massive amount of development time, and the business owner's long-term maintenance costs just plummet.
That stability is crucial, especially when a business moves beyond just a static brochure site. I mean, a pretty homepage that loads fast is great, but things get infinitely more complex when a business needs to handle real-world operations.
Oh, absolutely. Data changes everything.
Right. The source guide spends a lot of time on how Breakdance handles dynamic data in e-commerce. Let's unpack the dynamic data aspect first. The text mentions it pulls live data from custom fields and PHP databases. How does this work in a, non-technical sense?
This is where the platform really flexes for serious businesses. To understand dynamic data, think of custom fields as unique data tags.
Tags.
Let's use a real estate agency as an example. Instead of just writing a generic paragraph about a house, the database has specific tags for square footage, number of bedrooms, and asking price.
Got it.
Traditionally, to get those specific tags out of the database and onto the live website, a developer had to write custom PHP code, PHP being the backend scripting language that talks to the server.
It sounds kind of like having a digital menu board at a restaurant. The agency designs the physical board, once, the layout, the fonts, where the daily special box goes.
Right.
Then, when the chef changes the soup of the day in the kitchen's database, the text on the beautiful board out front automatically updates. No one has to take the board down to paint new words on it.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. Breakdance democratizes that entire process. It allows the visual designer to connect the front-end design to the back-end database without writing a single line of PHP.
So they're just connecting the dots visually.
Yes, they design the layout for the property listing once, and the platform automatically pulls the custom fields for every house in the database into that layout.
Wow, that capability has to be a game changer when we start talking about e-commerce. I mean, the guide specifically details integration with WooCommerce, which is the primary e-commerce engine for WordPress.
It is, yeah. And the guide notes Breakdance has over 20 dedicated elements just for shop pages.
Why so many? E-commerce is notoriously rigid, right?
Yeah.
Out of the box, WooCommerce is highly functional, but the default checkout pages usually look very generic.
They do. They look like standard online stores from a decade ago.
But why is that a problem? If it works, why does a business need a visual builder to heavily customize the checkout page?
Because of the jarring user experience, imagine spending thousands of dollars on advertising to drive traffic to a beautifully branded modern homepage.
Okay.
The user gets excited, they click Add to Cart, and suddenly they are dumped onto a checkout page that looks completely different. The fonts have changed, the layout is clunky, the trust badges are missing.
Oh, I've experienced that firsthand. You instantly wonder if you've been redirected to a scam site or if the payment processor is broken. You hesitate.
And hesitation is the leading cause of cart abandonment. Historically, optimizing that WooCommerce checkout flow to match your brand perfectly required messy plugin hacks or really expensive custom coding.
So Breakdance solves this visually.
Yes. It allows an agency to visually drag and drop every single element of the checkout flow. Product grids, inventory badges, custom pricing tiers. It can all be manipulated visually to ensure the user never loses trust in the aesthetic of the brand.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Let's pause there, though, because everything we've discussed so far naturally leads to a massive question about strategy and budget for you, the listener.
The bottom line, yeah.
Right. The platform is visually intuitive. It eliminates the need for dozens of plugins. It handles complex database pulls effortlessly, and it makes e-commerce optimization a drag-and-drop experience. The source material outlines the logistics of hiring an agency to do this, and we're looking at 2 to 4 weeks and $1,500 to $5,000 for a basic 5 to 10 page site.
Which, by the way, is an incredibly rapid deployment compared to the 6-month timelines we discussed at the beginning.
It is. But then the guide mentions enterprise and complex e-commerce projects. Those run 6 to 12 weeks and cost anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 or more.
Yep, it was the big build.
Here is where I have to play the skeptic again. If this tool removes all the manual coding, if it has a massive library of pre-built professional elements, why on earth is a business owner paying an agency up to $50,000? I mean, shouldn't our listener just buy a Breakdance software license for a couple $100, watch some tutorials, and build their store over the weekend?
That is the most common question business owners grapple with when they discover these tools. It really is. But you have to separate the tool from the strategy.
Okay, how so?
When you hire a top-tier agency today, you are no longer paying for someone to manually type HTML and CSS. That is the old manual labor model.
So what exactly is that $50,000 buying me then?
You're paying for a cohesive digital strategy. You are paying for an expert understanding of user psychology, conversion rate optimization, and accessibility compliance. You're paying for server-side configuration and SEO architecture.
Oh, so all the things that actually make the website make money.
Precisely. Breakdance simply removes the technical friction. Instead of an agency spending 50 hours fighting with PHP to make a database work, they snap it together in 5 hours.
Ah, I see. And then they spend the remaining 45 hours analyzing heat maps, writing compelling copy, and figuring out exactly how that data should be presented to maximize sales.
Exactly. Furthermore, the source mentions how agencies use something called design sets within Breakdance.
Design sets, what are those?
They're reusable custom components that allow an agency to ensure your branding, like your exact button radiuses, typography scaling, and color palettes, remain perfectly consistent across a massive, say, 500-page enterprise site.
Oh, wow. Yeah, a business owner trying to DIY that over a weekend is going to end up with a disjointed mess, regardless of how easy the drag and drop tool is.
Exactly. The agency manages the rigor so the business owner can focus on running their company.
Now, the guide does briefly compare Breakdance to its competitors, specifically mentioning Elementor, which has been a dominant name in the visual builder space for years.
Yes, Elementor is huge.
The key differentiators highlighted are Breakdance's priority on cleaner code generation for faster load times, and including advanced functionalities like the dynamic data integrations natively, without requiring clients to buy third-party add-ons.
Which reinforces the core philosophy we've been discussing. It provides a complete high-performance ecosystem out of the box. By not relying on a web of paid add-ons, agencies can confidently guarantee site stability and speed.
So let's pull all of these threads together and synthesize the deeper takeaway for our listener. The landscape of building a business online has fundamentally transformed.
It really has.
We have officially moved away from the era where having a powerful, custom database website required a massive development team coding line by line. We've entered the era of democratized visual automation.
Platforms like Breakdance are proving that you can have all three pillars of a modern website simultaneously: lightning-fast front-end speed, flawless mobile-first responsiveness, and deeply integrated back-end features, all without the crushing technical bloat of plugin sprawl.
So if you are a business owner or a manager planning a digital project right now, whether you're launching a new product or finally tackling that dreaded redesign, knowing what software engine your agency uses is just as critical as looking at their portfolio of pretty designs.
It's the engine under the hood. It matters.
Exactly. The tool they choose dictates your project timeline. It dictates your budget. It dictates whether you will be managing a sleek, reliable digital machine or constantly paying retainers to fix a fragile house of cards every time there's a software update.
It absolutely dictates the foundation of your digital real estate. And, synthesizing all of this actually brings up a fascinating paradigm shift regarding the future of digital business. It's something I think every listener needs to just sit with for a minute.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if platforms like this are completely removing the technical barriers to building an enterprise-grade, flawlessly fast website, then having a perfect website is no longer a competitive advantage.
Wait, hold on. Say that again. A perfect website isn't an advantage.
Not anymore. Think about it. If everyone, from a massive corporation to a boutique startup down the street, has access to tools that generate instantaneous, mobile-optimized, bug-free digital storefronts, then technological perfection isn't special.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, it becomes the baseline. It is the bare minimum expectation from the consumer.
That is a wild thought.
As the technology itself becomes invisible and effortless, we are returning to the fundamentals of commerce. Your actual business ideas, your copywriting, the quality of your product, and your brand's unique story are going to become the absolute only things that differentiate you in the crowded digital marketplace. The software just gets out of the way.
What a profound realization to end on. If the canvas is perfectly smooth for absolutely everyone, success comes down entirely to what you choose to paint on it. It means we don't have to fear the technical hostage situation of a website redesign anymore. The jammed front door to the store is finally wide open. You just have to make sure that what you are selling inside is actually worth buying.